to another episode of the Digitize Fully Charged Podcast. My name's Pam Curry, joined as always by Niall Ridgway, and today's episode was a brilliant conversation with Andy McLaughlin from Aberdeen University. Andy's a lecturer there now in the teacher education programme, but he's had a whole career's worth of exciting jobs. We dig into loads of great chat in this episode about the curriculum improvement cycle. We talk about all the kind of innovations and developments that are happening right now in education. We get a bit philosophical at times, so let's jump in. Super excited by today's guest, Andy McLaughlin. You are an old friend, I suppose. We've known each other for a number of years now, sort of online and offline. But for the sake of our audience, could you please provide just a little introduction to you and your career in education, and how you kind of the road that you took to where you are today, lecturing in Aberdeen and teaching the future generations of teachers?
It's a long and winding road, Pam. I think if I go back to the early days, I started out with a degree in history, and everybody asked me at that point, "Oh, so degree in history, you'll be a history teacher." And at that point in my life, I was going, that's the last thing I want to do. I do not want to be a teacher.
That's what happened to me. That's what happened to me with English teaching.
It's terrifying.
It was the only thing I was good at in school. Yeah, you're good at English. Be an English teacher.
Just keep the ball rolling is basically what it is.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no, I don't want to do that. So I went to St Andrews and got myself my postgrad in IT, and then worked in IT for best part of a decade. Had a great time.
Did you? What did you do in IT?
All sorts of weird stuff. Everything from data collection to networks. We rewired the entire university network for Dundee across 4 campuses.
Cool.
Did all the voice over IP technology stuff for that. What else did
Interesting.
I do? I went into website design, did a lot of that stuff. So, ton of websites, including. I got some really nice wee opportunities to do things like Fife and Kinross Research Property Centre, where they were using like database backgrounds and stuff. I was like, at that point in time, this is cool. Like the early 2000s. At that point in time, that was kind of new and exciting.
Oh
yeah. Whereas now you kind of go Digitize, okay. But I was doing all these techie things, and then in my evenings I was working with the Boys Brigade. I was working with Duke Edinburgh's groups. I was working with kids.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself, I'm at a point in my career where I'm never going to make millions. We've missed the .com bubble. I'm too late. So money wasn't the thing for me. So I was going, what do I want to do with this? And I couldn't help but think, here, all my evenings are getting spent with kids, and I'm really enjoying that. How do I get that to pay my bills? And then I can do what I was kind of going, I can make websites on the side. That's easy. So I swapped it out. 10 years in, I thought, no, I need a change. I hit 30 whilst doing my PhD, which meant I was an old man compared to everybody else.
Sure.
Everybody else has got out in the bevy, and I'm like, I'm going to go home and have a cup of tea. Thanks, guys. Enjoy your night,
Tired
biscuit.
Too much for me. And then, so I started teaching. Started teaching in Dundee. Had a year at Craigie High in Dundee. Was absolutely brilliant. I still think among my very best experiences, absolutely brilliant. Loved that place. And then moved to Orkney. So I was a year as a history teacher in Dundee, and moved to Orkney to be the only modern studies teacher on the Isles.
Wow.
That was an interesting change.
That's an experience.
Go from an inner city school to an island school was quite a change as well. Yeah. So I did that for 4 years. Talk about my tour of duty on the rock. Did 4 years in Orkney. And then the running joke was, I'm never going to meet a wife up here. And so
hilarious.
I need to get south again and find a wife. That was the running joke.
That's so funny.
It got funnier because 6 months after moving down to Edinburgh, I met my wife. It wasn't even 6 months, it was five and a half months. So it worked out for everybody. And I took a job there in one of the biggest schools in Scotland. Worked there for 3.5 years. Then did that kind of weird. I really quickly did the promotional ladder thing. Things aligned nicely. So I got into Tynecastle, did a wee bit of time there as PT, and then COVID hit, which was it's such a weird thing to say, but it was a blessing for me. It was horrendous. It was a horrible time and all this. But I went from being like, here I'm a PT. Oh right, can you be depute for the council? Because of my digital skills. almost entirely because of that. I was like, I can do that.
Yeah,
so I ended up with 86 staff working across all the schools. I had a team of 10 digital folk working with me offline. And we took the council through COVID. And then immediately after
Not an
that,
easy task.
I was kind of like, do I want to go back to school? And I kind of got used to having cups of tea whenever I wanted to, and being able to go to the toilet without a bell going off,
Yes.
So I was kind of like, what do I want to do? And because of the work we've been doing in digital, and because there's a couple of folk really pushing for it, we got the money for the one-to-one device rollout, 46,000 devices. And I was desperate to join the team. I was like, let me get on that. I want to get involved. So did the rollout thing, and then realised that I was just exhausted from doing 2 years of like big tasks. And the job at Aberdeen came up, and I thought, I quite fancy that. That sounds just up my street. Working with young, because I think I spent a lot of the time in the COVID year working with teachers who'd just come through probation and maybe hadn't quite finished the probation, because obviously it was March when we all got locked down.
Sure.
And I recognised that there were kind of gaps and things that I could certainly see I could sort of fix. Couldn't fix all of it. There's things in there I couldn't do, and there's also an awareness that when they're coming through as a student, they can't know everything. You cannot possibly give them everything in the space of 9 months. But I thought, digital thing is missing. Let's get in and get that done. So jumped at the chance, took the job, and I've been there now for near enough 4 years, and absolutely loving it. Time flies, eh?
I can't believe that's what. I know. It's kind of crazy to think that COVID was 5 years ago. It's like, it's mad, and yet we're also getting told that by 2030, AI is going to have taken X percentage of jobs, and you're like, that's the same amount of time away as COVID was away. And how quickly is that gone?
Listen, my favourite thing is when we keep on talking about 21st century skills, and I'm like, guys, we're a quarter of the way through the 21st century. We haven't got them yet.
I thought about that.
That's so funny and true.
I mean, do you know, it was invented in 1999, and I made sense back then. Like, your 21st century skills before we start that century would be good, but we're a quarter of the way through. We still don't have them. So I don't know how it's going to work out.
That's so true. So working with students, you've been there 4 years. One of your aims was digital. What have you been doing? Like, what, as a university, what's the shift been towards
what's the changes been there?
Embedding digital in the teacher training programs?
So we've seen this. I mean, there's been a bit of change within the programs themselves around things like technologies and throwing in the computational thinking thing for primary and for secondary, especially my social studies cohort. We've been looking at things like, how do we implement using video and using those digital tools that way? How do we use things like podcasts and not the... It's always my thing. It's like, yes, you can go and get the stuff that's available, and you'll spend 3 hours looking on YouTube for the right clip, or you can spend 40 minutes, half an hour making the right clip. It's a lot quicker. So trying to give them the skills to go and just make stuff rather than going looking for stuff, it makes a huge difference. So we've been having a bit of fun with that, sending them out to do a bit of outdoor learning, and then saying, right, turn that into some kind of video, piece that you could then use in a classroom tomorrow. And a lot of that comes from the work I was doing at the council. When I was working at Edinburgh and we were rolling out devices, we were saying, look, here's your iPad, here's things you can do with it that, and instead of doing training that was like, let's take you through the theoretical things of OneNote or whatever else, we're going, look, there's the app, open it, make something right now that you can use tomorrow, because then you're actually using it. Whereas if you've made something that you'll never use, there's still a block for a lot of folk. They don't want to do it. So you're like, well, look, just make a thing for tomorrow. It doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be done. And roll it. And then the more you do it, the better you get. So that's kind of what we're doing. And then on top of that, we've it's been quite nice because the team's recognised that there's a big gap in the computer science teaching, and we've not had it running at Aberdeen for a while. So we've now got a new STEM programme that's running that allows for the undergraduate degree and the PhD to be rolled up in one, basically, and they come at the end of it. So with all these news reports about computer science graduates coming out, can I find jobs? We're saying, well, we're not saying don't go into computer science because you want to go into computer science. What we're saying is go into computer science, and hey, you know what? Not as a backup, but as an alternative, as a way of getting into the job market, you can always become a teacher. We've given you that kind of setup. So it doesn't diminish what's happening. We're already still doing the same thing as the undergrad degree plus PhDE, so they're ready for it. It's just giving them that extra bow,
that flexibility.
Rather than giving another quill for their bow, it's like, here's another bow, another entire field you can go into if you want to. So it's been quite good, and I'm hoping that'll really take off. We've got a lot of government funding for it. It's just another way to try to tackle it, and it's been interesting to see different unis trying different things. So obviously the Glasgow model's using, working with Skyscanner and trying to bring folk in a couple of days a week. Whereas ours is very much still, you're a full-time student and you'll do just the same things we've always done. It's just that we've given that model a slight upgrade for the 21st century, or whatever they call it.
Yes. I love that.
How are you preparing the students for the different local authorities that they're going to? Because every local authority uses different systems. How do you prepare them for where they're going to be going? Because you don't know. You don't know what it's going to be like.
I always talk about that kind of digital agnostic thing. And look, it's about understanding ways of working, not understanding the app you're working on. Because whether you're using Apple numbers or Excel spreadsheets, they're the same thing, really. Exactly. Like just get your head around the way of working rather than worrying about the ins and outs of it. Once you're in, you can do all the.
Yes.
I mean, this is a kind of weird dichotomy for me because you end up working in one of 3 platforms, or really one of 2 platforms, Google or Microsoft, and then you've got Apple added into that for fun in like 6 authorities, just to make things happen. And it does, you do get that thing, well, why are you giving me 2 sets of the same thing? You're like, we're giving you numbers and we're giving you Excel. Choose the one you like the most, it's probably the best thing. But actually what I found is that things like Excel do Excel things very well, but don't really do anything else. Controversially, I find Apple numbers to be the equivalent of a crayon version of Excel. It just doesn't feel quite as nuanced and niche and nice and thought through. It's basic, but it's brilliant if you're wanting graph paper to do some sketch notes on.
Yeah.
So if you think about what do you use that app for, I wouldn't be using that as a spreadsheet because industry standard we wouldn't use it for a spreadsheet, but I would definitely use it for doing sketch notes because then I've got grid paper I can use and it works really well, and you can make it come to life. So it's finding the right tools. It's being a bit more creative with it, but preparing them for it, it's literally going, look, you're going to get into a school and you're either going to have Google or you're going to have Microsoft. The tools are called different things, but realistically, they're all the same thing. It doesn't make so much of a difference. Yeah. My bigger bugbear is that we are so bent over a barrel by these big ed tech companies because they've come in going, hey, we made these lovely things in the 80s for office spaces and really grey, boring accountancy firms. Here, put it into your school and do creative things. And you go, what? I just find that really awkward. So I'm kind of like, well, can we get away from that? I mean, I came into teaching at a time pre-GDPR when we could Pam, you'll remember this, we could literally pick anything we wanted. And it could be, we didn't go monkeys about digital privacy or any of that data protection. Don't care, made in China, let's use it. I'm not saying that was necessarily a good thing, but the choice was there and it meant you picked the right tool rather than picking the tool you've got. And I think that's the thing. It goes back to that kind of Maslow's hammer thing about if all you've got is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail because you haven't got any kind of solution to it. Whereas if you're looking around going, right, what can I bash? You're not really doing the work you should be doing. So where's that intentionality? Where do we pick out the tools we can do? So a lot of the work I'm doing at the uni, as well as doing the kind of student education bit, is working with computer science students and saying, look, you've got to do a project as part of your 3rd year course. How about making that an educational technology? Where we're looking at, could it be classroom management? We've got these tools that have been going around for 20 years that are still going around that aren't all that great, but they're the best we've got. And I'm going to go, let's see if we can make something a bit more nuanced, something that works within Scotland specifically, perhaps, just these kind of things. Today I was having a chat with a group about could we be using a digital tool to do really, really elaborate but really fun gamified revision tools. So looking at how did we use flashcards in the old days, how could we use a digital tool to do the same kind of thing, but upgrade it, not just substitute it one for one, but upgrade that to something much more meaningful, much more engaging, so that the kids want to use it. So there's opportunities there. And then they've got all these opportunities to take out, you're gamifying things, but taking out all the anxiety-inducing sort of adrenaline hits that come with games. So you can go, here's the dopamine reward for doing a good thing, but not with the adrenaline that makes you anxious. So how do we manage that kind of thing? So all those kind of conversations are happening. It's been really nice to do. And it's been great to see. Aberdeen is now on the EdTech, European EdTech map because of the work we're doing, which is brilliant.
That's fantastic. I noticed you said that in your notes about, interested in supporting EdTech startups. And I guess that's brilliant.
It's a really, weird, really cool. You go in, it's a bit like, remember the old days of being in school and you were the digital guy if you had the drawer full of cables. That was basically I've got one sitting right here. There we go. Right? So, I kind of did the same thing. I got to university and went, I'm all about digital. And they went, great. So enterprise and innovation. And I was like,
Yeah.
Like, what's that? But it's just been a role I've taken on, and I've absolutely loved it because it's getting a chance to think about not necessarily about making money, but how do we support these new things happening? So how do we look at innovation? How do we get folk in the local area building things that are for Scottish schools specifically, rather than being for single sign-on?
That's so cool. I love that. I didn't know you did that. That's amazing.
It's a fun wee thing. Like, meetings all week about different tools that are out there. And what's been great about it is when you're in school, you look around, you don't see an awful lot of Scottish-based ed tech. You're going, there's nothing there. There's no market. It's only when you start working you realise there's a whole bunch of individuals, and it tends to be like individuals or small groups who are working away in some shed in their back garden on a tool, and they're looking for a way in. And go back to Nell's point earlier, like it's 32 authorities have all put up their doors saying we're not having anything new, thanks very much, because we've made it impossible for you to come in. Please write this 70-page document for a DPIA or whatever. And that's just that doesn't help anything. So what the work we do with the students especially is saying, look, how can you go back to brass tacks when you're designing it? Think about the GDPR stuff. So thinking about there won't be a need to process that data elsewhere. There won't be a need
you're not
to store that
collecting email
data.
addresses.
Keep all
Magic
this
links.
on site. Just keep it simple. So it's been nice to do that and just get people, give them a head start, because there's nothing worse than if you've developed something up and then you go, can we get it into the market? They go, sorry, the market's shut to you now. What's the point? 5 years of work on this. What's the point? So just try to open doors for them.
Have you noticed a shift to vibe coding as well? For me, I spent ages building these games for my students, where I sat on Scratch and just did block coding for them. And I spent hours building these games. And then the other week, I just put it into an AI and said, can you create this for me? And it took me 10 minutes. And it was just essentially vibe coded. Are you seeing that shift happening with your students as well? Are they using these tools to support them?
Within computer science, no, I can't say they are. I mean, only because if I said that, they'd fail their program. So no, they're definitely not seeing that. Right? But we're definitely seeing more students who are attempting. So once we get them started on the idea of trying stuff out, they will go away and give it a bash, but they're also realising that AI can do some of that work for them. So I wouldn't say it's huge yet, but we're starting to see folks starting to kind of build that in, which is great. And as much as I don't want to see programmers out of work, I've always got that thing about it's not putting the programmer out of work. You still need the programmer to check it. If you're doing it professionally and going to make money, you need that expertise still there.
And actually, programmers have always done that. Like, they've always lifted giant chunks of code from GitHub and, applied...
Guilty as charged.
But actually, that's...
Of
course. And for me, because I've always been into kind of web design and bits of it, but I'm not a coder. I am not. I know bits of CSS, I know bits of HTML, but I'm not a coder. And I think for me, the thing that I didn't fully understand was how the kind of front end and back end bits of the internet come together with with things like Superbase and pulling in JavaScript and whatever else, and vibe coding and AI has really got me to understand that in a way that I'm like, oh right, if I get that, then I need to put that on there, and
it's just that layering up the stuff to make it work,
it's almost like, for me, it's become like that's the skill, almost like that's the skill we need to understand how all of these different coding languages and storage hubs work together to produce.
It's Lego. It's Lego.
Yes,
we talk about Lego as being like a creative tool. The web is a creative tool. I hate the idea of web. I think Matrix has got a lot to blame for this, but we'll look at the web and we see ones and zeros. We see switches. We see really boring stuff. I'm like, no, it was never. I certainly didn't ever feel like it was that growing up in the 90s, going into IT in the 2000s. I was always like, it's a creative conduit. It's a tool. It's a medium. Let's get creative with it. And I think we've lost that. And I don't know why. Maybe it's I would put the blame always on big tech because they can foot the bill. I don't care. Don't sue me, please. But big tech have kind of just they've made it. They've gone from being, because a great example, Glow version 1, if you remember it, was all about HTML.
Never forget it.
I mean, Pam's got it
ingrained, or there's a psychiatric therapy going on there. I don't know what it is. The mania is real. But Glow 1.0 was very much, do you know how to code with HTML? In which case you could do anything you wanted, and I loved it. I literally had come out of IT and was like, oh, this is a great tool. And I was making we were teaching Hitler's Germany for S2s. And I was making up Bebo posts for Anne Frank. So here's a whole Bebo profile. Here's what she's saying out of her book.
Bebo. You're
kids
showing your age there, Andy.
Don't, come on, there's no need for that.
For our younger audience, Bebo was a social network that was around how long ago?
15 plus years, I would think. Yeah, I mean, it probably crashed out not long after that. So so it was video, but it was literally like, you know, here is, I suppose the equivalent is, here's my TikTok profile page, and like here's all the bits on it.
Absolutely.
So you know, I was putting together the component parts, using the blog bit for them to do sections of Anne Frank's diary, so they were having to read the text without having to go to a book, which was, let's face it, cheating. It was great.
Yes.
I was using video clips from the time. I was putting in, like, even wee things like, you know, your favourite music. I could put in video, like music clips from 1940s German bands so they could hear it. You know, it was all these wee things to do and layer it up. But you could only do that if you knew HTML. So I was able to create an entire fake Bebo account for Anne Frank. And the kids engaged with it the same way they were engaging with each other in Bebo, which was... as far as I was concerned, it was cheating. I was like, this is easy.
Do you know what? That's but we've done the same thing, haven't we, now with Digitize, where we've got an activity which is to make a TikTok video that Macbeth might have done the night before he kills Duncan. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, that's how to reach your learners.
You're changing your medium, but the content of that lesson doesn't change. It's really good lesson regardless. But if you can make it something they can engage with on their own terms, it's so much more meaningful, more relevant to them. So I always looked at that kind of Glow 1.0 as I guess a canvas. I could do what I wanted with it because I had the skill set to do it. Unfortunately, I recognise looking around the school, hardly any of those kind of skill sets.
You were the only one.
Well, let's face it, there were maybe a handful of folk you knew at that time who could go on MySpace and knew how to code. Again, it was another for the younger folk, for the
blast for the past.
Or in this decade, it was another social media where you needed HTML to do it, but you could embed your favourite music and stuff. So there was loads of stuff you could do, but you needed the skills for it. It wasn't click and click, you know, like click over a box and just type in. That kind of content management we saw during Facebook, we've seen through Twitter, we've seen going into the TikTok and the likes. It's opened up the market for observing and seeing other stuff, for being a shopper, basically. You can go and get whatever you want.
Yeah.
But it's diminished creativity. And I always laugh. I remember Ollie Bray doing a presentation back in the day about different technologies coming into schools, and with it came all these complaints. So it was like, I can't believe we're using slates instead of bark. How will they ever know how to make their own? Right.
That's right.
The ballpoint pen. Pens you can buy. How will they ever know how to make their own ink? Like, it's all the same.
I'm sure it was something like, the ballpoint pen will be the ruination of mankind or something.
Exactly. It was all this layering up of like, just, you know, they'll lose the skills that we've got just now while they do this new thing. So I never want to find myself in that situation where I'm being that guy. But I do think there was a switch around about the time the iPhone came in.
Yes.
So 2014, 2015, where we stopped creating with the web and we just started curating whatever else was there. So it was like, we make playlists, we don't make music.
Yes.
And I found that quite odd. And I'd still kind of rail against it. I grew up in the 80s and my dad worked in IT. He was high up in Timex across Europe. And Dad had a computer at work that was like a quarter mile long, you know, this punch card going in one end. But I remember thinking about the punch cards. I mean, I've seen looking again recently. They're beautiful. They're all different colours. It's incredibly tactile and hands-on coding. It's a creative art. Whereas we think of it now as maths. We've lost that application connection where we go, it's just a thing theoretical. We don't need to know anything about it. We don't need to do anything about it. Before, it was such a physical, tactile thing that you made programs, literally made them. You punched holes in card. And it looked beautiful at the end of it. Like, here's an array of different colours doing different things. And the only way you got to find out if it worked or not was when you fed it into the machine. And I think we've lost something in there. We've lost that creativity piece because we're now a Microsoft school or an Apple school or a Google school. And we're using that very closed off, ring fence kind of market, which is to the detriment, I think.
I think that's an interesting one because I noticed that in your notes as well about this idea of using business tools in an education context. And yeah, I mean, okay, they possibly prepare young people for work, but at the end of the day, is it an education product?
But
No.
but the other thing, and it's that same age-old thing about we're preparing kids for work. We all know that the jobs that they're going to go out to don't exist. So what are we preparing them for? What are we trying to do? Let them figure out how to work individually. Let them figure out how to work collaboratively. It doesn't really matter what tool they're using. The tool they'll be using when they get to work won't be the same.
No,
Correct.
it's the skills that are...
So it's the skill set, and it's the social skill bit,
What I thought was fascinating, right, in your notes is that you were possibly the only kid in Dundee that
I've got to hear as well.
that didn't have a ZX Spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that your dad used to work for Timex.
Yeah.
And there's a brilliant story about the ZX Spectrum being made in Dundee because the Timex factory had shut down, and Spectrum, Clive Sinclair realised that there was a whole workforce there that could work with little fiddly bits of technology and a big factory that could get them done. But I remember this BBC News article, right? It was what's the name of that guy? The Chris Van Der...
Chris Van Der Kuyl.
Minecraft.
Yeah. And it was an article about him, right? And he said, I think the reason Dundee is a hotbed for video games development was because as many ZX Spectrums went out the back door as went out the front door. And he said, so basically every kid in Dundee had a Spectrum.
Yeah, apart from you, Andy.
Apart from you, Andy,
Well, we'll get to that, and I don't want to get too much into it. I mentioned this last time I was on a podcast that my dad was like totally miffed. But
right.
Only because Dad was the director for IT across Europe for Timex. He was top dog, right?
A big cheese.
He got how to do programming. He was very good at it. He understood technology.
Yeah.
We had a PC in the house from 1983. So before I had a younger brother, I had a PC, which is, I guess, is why I didn't need a ZX Spectrum. I suppose. The killer bit was that I remember Dad having that conversation that went, "Oh, they'll never do coding for fun, so what's the point in getting a Spectrum?" Basically, but it didn't mean I didn't have access to doing some of this. So,
of course,
back in the 80s, it was literally you were using DOS to get anything done on your computer. So there was a bit of coding going on. But the ZX Spectrum, there was a funny story about the toilets in the Timex factory were like a black market. So there were all these all these ZX Spectrums going for like a tenner. So they're retailing at 120 quid. They're a tenner in the toilets.
I love that.
And we lose all that. 94 when Timex shut, there was a real heartbreak in the city. There was an awful lot of folks out of work. But you lost that kind of social dynamic. There's all that kind of. There's such a massive employer. There's so many connections in there. So a real shame. But I think Chris mentioned that there's a weird one. My dad knows Chris's dad, or knew Chris's dad. And there was a funny story about, there was three of them sitting at the table, and one of them was talking, he's got a record shop, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to get into this. I can't remember if it's tapes or CDs, but I'm not going to get into that. No, they'll never take off." And it was like, how did that go for you? So those kind of conversations were clearly happening all the time about, where is that next big jump going to be in technology? And we don't know that they've done it until we're past it. We're going through one just now with AI.
Totally.
But I've always got this thing in my head about, is it a bubble that pops? Like, is it the web of the late 90s where everybody goes mad for it, there's loads of folk making loads of money, and then it's gone because it doesn't make the jumps forward it needs to do. Similarly, we didn't realise we were going through a massive change like that when the iPhone first came out. But looking back, holy smokes, that has changed. It's changed our day-to-day life. Like, the fact we've got the computers in our pocket now compared to, like, we used to do Facebook by going online, like, and sitting at a computer, big old machine, sitting typing away. And therefore, you were only on for 25 minutes a day because you couldn't be bothered sitting any longer than that. Whereas now, we're on for hours because it's in our pocket. And I think there's those kind of changes. We don't know we're in them until we're past them. So
that's so true.
It'll be interesting to see where we go with the AI stuff.
Sam Altman has been quoted as saying that there'll be more sort of millionaires, billionaires made in the next 5 years than there were in the entire period of the internet because of AI. And I think what fascinates me about the AI tools is that a lot of the AI kind of SaaS products, like software products, are they're being outdated every couple of months because of the core AI product development changing.
There's also some interesting rumblings just now from Silicon Valley about the bubble going to pop, because they're like, it's not moving forward. It's moved forward very fast. I still laugh at the SQA taking AI out of the computer science curriculum just before AI took off. You're like, whoops.
No.
It's like, hold on, guys, played that one well.
No.
Like they didn't know. Like, how are you going to know that?
No.
So, there's those kind of weird loops and come through. But the idea of the AI bubble popping before it's really had time to take traction, because it's gone so fast, is probably terrifying. If you're working in that industry, you're working in Silicon Valley, it must be terrifying to go, hey, you know what? It might take off. It might be the game changer. It might be the next iPhone, like, that kind of big movement. Or it could be yet another flash in the pan where we went, oh yeah, that's that, and back to spell checker. So I just don't know how it's going to work.
I actually think that what they may be meaning there is that, so there's all these kind of companies using the base technology and the APIs to build software products. Yeah. And they launch them and they get probably millions of startup investment and VC funding, but then the core technology will bring out the very same thing they've invented and make them obsolete overnight. And I think that's probably what's happening. Like agentive AI, the core technology, Google Gemini's Gems and custom GPTs and ChatGPT, like they almost invalidate the need for some of the big fancy softwares that have just been built 6 months ago.
It's that really awkward with it, because it's the progression of the tech happens quicker than the progression of the thinking around the tech.
Yes,
so the humans are going, I've got an idea, the tech's already surpassed them. You're like, that's unfortunate. Which comes back to that thing about how we prepare our kids, because if you're showing them how to use Excel spreadsheets, and in 10 years' time Excel spreadsheets are done and dusted, what was the point? And I'm always very aware of that, because there was so much time spent, in the 2000s talking about HTML. You need to learn how to code.
Aye.
And make websites. You're like, why? Because now you just go on, you get a content management system, you just wrap it in.
See, that's the thing. That's always worried me, is this kind of focus on coding. It's like that's the only way you can build a digital product. No, like you can build digital products without knowing.
So I have a thing about, I don't think you necessarily need to have a coding language, but I do think you need to understand how coding works.
Yeah, you do.
Yes,
that's
so
exactly.
Really understand what is this tool doing? Really getting to that point, I think is really important.
Yeah.
There's a thing I came out a couple of years ago now, and it's the patents on Apple earbuds going into the next generation, and it was the number of biomechanical sensors this thing had, and it's like, holy smokes, it's basically reading your thoughts and movements before you know what you're doing. And that data has been stored, and I was like, that's terrifying. Like, what does that do? So it's like you don't need to be able to make your own earbuds.
No.
But it's probably a good idea to understand what the earbuds are doing with your data.
Yes.
So
there's that big story about Facebook, from whether it's true or not, I don't know. Facebook knew somebody was pregnant before they knew they were pregnant because of what they were searching for, what they've been looking at recently. Yeah, all of the data that it is pulling from your world, and seemingly knew that this person was pregnant before they even knew.
We can't do quite that. But when when my wife got pregnant, we had that thing of, initial test, therefore we need to start thinking about things going forward. So what do we need to think about? We need to think about furniture for the spare room. We need to think about prams. And we just, literally just got the happy news on Thursday. And this was the Sunday. And we're just, all the excitement. I wonder what kind of prams there are there. Well, let's go and do that. So we did a wee Amazon check, and the next thing, Amazon's algorithms are throwing stuff at us, and we're
just launching it at you.
But it was worrying, because I'm sitting with my mum and dad, and I opened up Amazon, and it was all baby stuff, and I hadn't told them yet. I was like, move on quickly.
Yep.
We haven't even had it confirmed with the doctor yet, and the Amazon's throwing stuff at us to get sold. So that algorithmic thinking thing terrifies me at times. It's why I think I'm an absolute Luddite when you see me hit my digital watch isn't a smartwatch. It's literally a timepiece. My phone has got a dozen apps on it. That's all I've got, because I don't want that intrusion.
Yep.
I always feel like the guys in Silicon Valley who invented the like button and then immediately went, here, PA, take my new phone and put parental controls on it so I can never use that. And you're like, oh, if you know it's bad for you, why are you putting it out for everybody? It's like, where's that? I get you want to make money, but surely there's a conscience bit in there a bit. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's where I get this weird, I look like a Luddite at times.
It's like refreshing when you take a break, isn't it? I remember last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I was decorating and I literally left my phone in the bedroom.
Brilliant.
And then forgot about it for 2 days. It was so amazing, like just to not.
Well, even
that.
see on these October holidays. So when we're recording this, I'm on October holidays. I spent the first couple of days and I was just sitting scrolling on my phone, and I got to the point where I was like, I'm wasting my time here. So I've put all the parental guides on everything. So I've given myself 30 minutes across every social media because I need to put stuff out for Digitize stuff, and there's still work stuff going on in the background. But it's limiting myself because I'm like, I can't be trusted. I can't trust myself at the moment.
Isn't it weird though that we've got to do that? It's such a strange thing. It's so addictive. It's been designed to have your attention. I always think social media was wrongly named. It's not social.
It's not social.
It's not social about it. It's the anti-social media, right? But I think it's the attention economy. It's how long can we keep you attached to your phone, looking at the screen, and therefore we can monetize your gaze. When you kind of think of it that way, and this is where I think having to write 100 DPIAs for Ender's rollout and sitting with all the privacy stuff.
That's
not fun. It probably put the shivers up me about some of the apps that people were requesting. I'm looking at it and going, this is what they want to do with your data. There's no way you're getting that in schools. Absolutely no way. Because of that, I'm very aware of it, and I must be one of the few folks that when they get a new update on their phone, I read the T's and C's. I'm always like, all right, let's go through the 47 pages of text because I don't trust them. I think that's the thing. I
love that.
Don't trust them. I don't trust anybody. Let's face it.
I think see the next time you do that, could you send us a wee gist of it somewhere?
Oh, I'll do it. It won't be a wee gist. It'll be me taking an absolute 2-hour rant on what they're trying to do, and it's usually tiny wee changes. You're going to go, but what does that actually mean in real life? Because it seems like an innocuous thing. We've changed this word in your T's and C's, and you're like, what does that mean? What does that mean you're going to do with my data?
Well, even all of the Adobe stuff, when they was it like 2 years ago or so, said, we'll take all of the things that you create, and then we technically own that, and we can start using that to train other models and other things that we're doing. And all these people that are like creators that are doing things for other people as like as jobs are like, hold on, you can't own this because I'm doing this as a wee side project here, or this is for a bigger client who things haven't been announced, has
paid money for
but
it.
it's just hidden in the fine print.
And it's little things like if you're a creator or even a writer and you're making a PDF and they're going, oh, that's ours now, and you're like, hang on, all of those thoughts are mine. None of those are coming from you. So how are you getting We've always had those kind of strange, like, who owns what? Schools are always great for it. Like, does the school own the work that you do to develop resources? Do you own the work you do to develop resources? At university, undergraduates own their own stuff. Postgraduates, the university owns it.
Oh, really?
Like, weird dichotomy thing, like just weird things like that where you're going to go, well, how does that work out for you? So if you want to turn this into a business as a postgrad or a member of staff, the university gets a cut. As an undergraduate, it's all yours, I'll crack on. It's just a strange way of working.
Because that's how it's funded. That's it.
So it's just like, where's that model? So with Adobe, it's like, well, you've paid. I always think if you've paid a license fee to use it, they own nothing.
No.
They own your money because you've given them it. On the other hand, if you're using a free version, they're going to make money somehow. We'll take your stuff. And I'm like, well, that's going, but that feels like it feels like a Victorian marketplace. Like, it feels like Oliver Twist is going to pop up at any minute where you go, hey, I can pay for that. Oh, you can't pay for that? Right, come here with me. You're going to work for 4 hours. Like, that's that kind of vibe. And it just feels a bit, I don't like it. That's capitalism.
One of the things that I thought was really interesting, Andy, in your notes was that you said your passion for learning was extinguished by high school.
Yeah.
Now, I thought that was a nice sort of starting point for us to have a bit of a chat around that. I mean,
I was ginger, I wore specs, and I've got big teeth in the 90s. I wasn't enjoying life generally, so that wasn't great. So I got to high school, and primary school had been great. I absolutely loved it. I'd done well. I think that's part of it. There's probably a bit in there about growth mindset, coming in, or in my case, not. It's like, hey, I'm doing well, I don't need to work too hard. And I enjoyed the kind of community that primary school had created, or whatever else. And I got to secondary school and just found it hard. I found it hard to fit in. I found it hard to get through my day without being exhausted for whatever reason. I didn't particularly enjoy the learning style. So, at maths at primary school, it was like, can you do your 100 sums in the morning for mental arithmetic to start you off in the day, get your wee starter going, and then you would go on and do some SPMG stuff. And it was always kind of, it was quite enjoyable, kind of nice wee stories that went along with the maths. And then you got into secondary and they went, there's the SMP books on the board, on the back of the wall, just grab one and start and then keep going. And there was no pedagogy there. It was literally like, you know, the maths teacher quite literally could have sat at the front drinking tea and said nothing to anybody all day.
I used to teach English, right? And we used to, the preparation involved in English and the marking involved in English was incredible. And I used to go and do cover in maths and be like, well, that's a different gig.
Literally, the rack of books at the back. What is it like? I think you're on the Cyan book, sir, aren't you?
Yeah. Page 46, exercises are all done, lesson plans are done for the full year, and it's self-marking.
And it's hard, because I always find the thing, I speak to maths teachers now, and I go, the gig you're doing now is a very different thing. You're trying so hard to make it engaging and make it relevant and make it worthwhile.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, it was crap. It was just awful. And I hated it. And I hated maths for that reason, and therefore switched off from it, despite the fact my brain is like massively on the logical side of things. Love looking for patterns. I love maths. I don't love maths as subject. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like it just killed off any joy for that side of things. And then I guess going through, it was like the history stuff. I love history, but there was a time, kind of S1, S4, I was like, this is boring. There's nothing exciting here. And so it's like I was looking for creativity, I was looking for something more than what I was getting. And so I was picking up art and then dropping it S3, S4 because it wasn't in my columns. And you're like, I love that, but I can't do it because it doesn't fit.
No.
So it's like all the kind of just the way things were so tied up, and I didn't like it. And I wasn't like I say, the social side of things at school for me was hard anyway. So it's like, if I'm not enjoying the learning bit and I'm not enjoying the social bit, what's the point of me being here?
Yep.
Like in some ways, I suppose it is getting better. Curriculum innovation is coming, and there are improvements, but in some ways it's also getting worse because of the kind of, the social anxiety around it and the number of young people that just don't go to school because they can't. And
but I think there's also a bit in there about it's become a bit more acceptable to just go, I'm just not going. Whereas before, I was going from a family where you're going to school, but my leg's hanging off, you're going to school. There's a different model around accountability for teachers, different model around accountability for kids. And I think there's much more accountability for teachers now. There's a cartoon somewhere online that basically goes, parents' night in the 80s was these grades are bad, and the parents turn to the kids and they're like, why are these grades so bad? And then like parents' night in the 2010s were like, it's these grades are bad, and the parents turn to the teacher and go, why are these grades so bad? And I think that change is definitely part of it as well. Like there's just been a change in relationship about how school works, which is not great. It doesn't help anybody.
No, it doesn't. I wonder, like, is there any discussions taking place? Because, like, in terms of this sort of curriculum improvement cycle and everything, obviously I'm not part of that because I'm not working as an educator right now. But, like, has there been chat about restructuring the system in terms of, because it seems to me like it would be a really good idea to keep kids at primary school longer. And
we've talked about this at length before, Pam. The idea of, and it's not about going back to the old days of having grammars and vocational
middle
schools
and all that,
But if you think about how the curriculum's designed, it's designed to go early years through to S3.
Yeah.
There's your BGE. Yeah. So that's,
I know.
Like, you're adding a transition point in there for no reason at all. Like, why did they leave primary school at P7? If you look at somewhere like Finland or Germany, where we're always looking across to Finland going, how do they do things? Well, they do that by having the transition point where it needs to be
later,
instead of having an extra one. So they have that kind of junior school where they work up to S3 and then they move on to it. There's those conversations have been going on for years. And I think the thing that will hold, there's two things that will hold back from that. One is there's a cultural mindset around, well, we had that before. We didn't like the idea that kids got to S3 and then got set into vocational or academic lines. Fair enough. But the other thing, I suppose, is that we've just built hundreds of new schools. And we haven't built them with the capacity to go, right, you're going to be teaching up to S3, which is really odd. And I think there's the campus schools we're seeing growing, sort of primary, secondary campus schools. There's an opportunity there. For me, it's always like, look, you're going to do your P1 to P7. I will always talk about the idea that primary teachers have got pedagogy nailed on because they spent time developing it. And if you ask them to talk about differentiation, they'll tell you 50 different ways they did it today. You get to secondary school and you go, how do you differentiate? And they go, what's differentiation? You're like, you're really struggling. Like, I only sit for 50 minutes. How am I meant to differentiate that? Okay, fair enough. So I always think that there's a transition point that we're missing, that we don't necessarily need to change how we go to school.
So we don't need to change buildings.
But could we? And we saw this, and a big part of the work I was doing at COVID was, and so the recommendations that came out of that year of COVID was, how do we use transition teachers from P7 into the S3 or S1, S3 BGE at high school? But also, how do we use our subject specialists in the primaries to enhance that learning? And I think there's a missing trick there. And it's in an ideal world, if we didn't have to worry about rebuilding buildings, I think we'd move that transition point further up. So you're doing the transition once, you're moving from BGE into senior phase, and therefore a change of building, change of staff, whatever else. Instead of, let's do these multiple transitions throughout your career that just don't make any... They made sense when that was a different model. But it hasn't been a different model for a long time. Like 5 to 14 was a totally different model. Like, so why are we still doing this? We're still juggling this idea of transitions that don't really need to be there. And just cause the upset for kids. Like, kids are going, I don't want to go to school anymore because I've moved to secondary and I don't like it. So I think there's lots to be done in there. The other thing around kind of curriculum improvement, I keep on looking over to Elmore. Elmore worked at Harvard, and he came up with the 4 modes of learning, and it was very much...
go and tell us more about them. Because...
It's right, let's get a wee graph going. So basically, it's like 4 quadrants, and it was the idea of how do you work individually to collectively, and then how do you work hierarchically, i.e. do you have somebody leading your teaching versus kind of on your own independent, or in this case, distributed, so that the learning happens to the individual. So if you are working individually in a distributed way, you might be learning through YouTube. So you're going on, you're finding the thing you want to do, and you're finding your way through that. And you go and you're like, if you learn to code, I always talk about learning to code. When I learned to code at uni, it wasn't really learning to code. It was, here's the tool, go off and play with it. And so when learning, you got in touch with folk who already used it and said, how do you do that? Okay, great. So, and you kind of cascaded that and helped each other out. That doesn't really happen in schools. We don't have that opportunity for peer support and learning in that kind of structured way, where they just go off and do this thing and they work together on it. We're very good at the hierarchical kind of weird thing with the teachers at the front and just
we're ace at that. Nailing
that. Right? We're absolutely ace at that. We're also quite good at that hierarchical piece when it comes to like coaching, football, and that kind of thing. So there's a bit in there about kind of like we're going to have one-on-one chats with you about how you improve. The conversation's different. It's not this is how you do it. It's hey, this is how you might do it. But then where's that kind of collective thing where they go off and they do the work and they're leading it and they're leading each other? That's not really there in the curriculum at the minute.
Project focus.
So the project-based things will be interesting. If you look at the map of Scotland just now, you can draw a line down the middle of it. Anything south of that border, they've gone for how do we solve the problems of preparing them for the world of work? We'll give them a device. Glasgow, Edinburgh, Borders, Falkirk, they've all gone for here's a device, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely a good way to do it. North of that border, and you can go a wee bit further north, but if you get up into the northeast, the Wood Foundation has rolled out all the project-based learning to Accelerate. And so they're trying to tackle the same problems in a totally different way. And they're going, we don't have devices because we've not invested in that, but we have invested in sending our staff out to Nashville and all that kind of jazz, right? So 2 very different approaches to tackle the same problems. For me, it underlines a bigger problem, which is we've got 32 local authorities all doing their own thing, all using their own platforms. Glow doesn't work anymore because we can't. Even just like the postcode lottery of can I do X? No. It's got way worse because each council's got this idea of this is my wee bundle of funding and this is what I'm going to do with it. And the national education system is actually 32 different education systems. We don't like to pretend it isn't, but that's what it is. We've got these 32 different authorities doing totally different things, pushing totally different priorities, and sometimes for the right reasons, because, you know, the learning that somebody from the Isle of Skye needs to do might be very different from somebody at Castle Milk,
local
for instance,
context.
Right?
Absolutely,
you need that local kind of place-based learning. But the way we're doing it, the way we're funding it, it's 32 different ways, and it just feels like some kids will be going, this is great, this really works for me, and others will be going, what is the point of me turning up?
Yeah, I know.
That's my sadness bit, I guess. But I'm hoping the curriculum review searched some of that out. And there have been some really interesting chats around that. Even little things. Nobody wants to see the 4 capacities go. Everybody's like, they're thing. but what if we change the language on those things?
Okay.
So there's been a couple of conversations I've had recently. One was about taking away the adjectives, basically. So you're just like, it's individuals, contributors, learners.
Just
right?
learners.
And I'm like, well, I'm not sure I like that, because those 4 capacities, if you take away the adjectives, those 4 things are just things that all kids are. Not what they should be, but they are. They are all contributors. They are all learners.
They're all learners.
Aspiration.
But the adjectives, I'm happy to get rid of all 4 nouns. I don't need those. I don't need you to tell me you're an individual. I know you're an individual. On the other hand, do I want you to be successful, to be confident? Yes, I do. So there's
that's interesting.
Even little things like that could make a massive difference to what we do. Because at the minute we're going, I want, success in one area. And we always talk about, especially in secondary, we are really, really good at one of the 4 capacities.
Yeah.
Because all of our measurement is on successful learners. It's all we do. It's all we talk about.
Yeah.
Like, have you got your 5 at 5? Have you got your 3 at 6?
Yeah.
So we're really, really good at focusing on that. How much do we spend our time focused on the other 3 capacities is another question entirely. And so if you take out the nouns and go, look, we're looking for all 4 of these capacities, these adjectives, if you like, then you maybe change the mindsets. Are you successful? Are you responsible? Are you, like, that's where we're going to get into it a bit more.
And actually, the responsible bit doesn't need to just be applied to citizenship. It could be applied to...
I'm a responsible learner.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not doing any kind of ethical cheating or whatever it is. So there's all these kind of wee things, these wee changes that could actually have a massive impact in what we do in our schools. Might be more meaningful than how we, reshape the buildings or whatever else. Just changing that mindset about how we're actually measuring stuff. Because it's the age-old adage, isn't it? It's like you measure what you value and you value what you measure. So if all we're measuring is how successful the learners are, do we care if they're responsible citizens? Nah, not really.
Aye. Aye, and actually that's really kind of pleasing that the 4 capacities are being seen as kind of something worth keeping, because when you think about them in terms of, like skills-based learning and future skills, they're actually like key.
Yeah.
I think this was always, when CFE first came in back in 2010 for secondary, we looked at it and went, there's bits of this that absolutely is nailed on. It's brilliant. It's based on the research. It's based on all the good stuff we've been talking about. It works all the way through primary. It works all the way through S3. And then it just the brakes went on. It's like, well, and I always feel bad because the SQA gets a really bad rap for this, because it's like, oh yeah, they just kept on going the way it was. And I was like, well, that's not actually what they did. I remember having those conversations in early doors where they were like, here's 3 different models of how you can assess. And one of them was a portfolio. You're like, we haven't got time for that. No, just do the
one of them was a podcast.
Videos,
podcasts have been mentioned in SQA assessment requirements for years. Is anybody producing a podcast
nobody's doing that.
No. I think the part of that was the timing of it. So they got the time scales wrong. I remember getting the green folder and being like, so when are we doing this? No, we'll tell you soon. You're like, great, okay. Thanks very much for giving us all the advice we need. Timing was too condensed, so we didn't have the time to think it through, develop it, whatever else.
That's so true.
As well as trying to teach in schools, like you just couldn't do all that.
Do you remember the secondary school? Like, we're going to do a curriculum for excellence day. Did you do that in your secondary schools? Where, like, it's like, well,
we time to sit there and all scratch our heads.
The rest of the time we'll just teach our subjects as normal, but then we'll have a curriculum for excellence day where we'll all be in the hall making a pizza box or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
and it was those opportunities where you sat in the inset days and they went, right, I want you to be in mixed groups, so you're working with English and maths, and I'm like, okay, what are we doing this for? Just so you can see how they approach it, and you're like, that's not what I'm needing right now. I'm needing time to go and develop the damn thing, But I do. My worry is that we end up with something. Not my worry. My hope this time round is that we end up with time to go, right, there's a change. How are we going to do that? So I was reassured quite heavily when I was at a steering group meeting recently with Kick, and they were going, this is the time scale. And I was going, actually, you know what? That's a chunky time. We've got a good long bit of time here to do the investigative thinking bit, to plan it all out, to test that stuff out, see if it works, and then for time to roll out in schools.
Yeah,
because the problem was the last time, and it was, I seem to remember Education Scotland gave us something like the January for that June, and then the SQA were like, we'll have it in August, and you're like, man, come on, let's get this together. So because the time scale was so, and I feel bad for SQA because they couldn't do anything quicker, they just did it as fast as they could, but there wasn't the time then for schools to embed it. So when we got offered with here's the, what was it they called it? There was the portfolio approach, there was a hybrid approach or something like this. And then there was the old-fashioned NABs, like, end-of-unit tests, whatever else.
Yeah.
And genuinely, 99% of folk went, I haven't got time to think about it. let's just do what we were always doing. So they just took the nabs and ran with it.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the moderation days for modern studies, and so few schools were going for a different approach.
I know.
And so you were like, well, SQA tried, and we just didn't have the headspace for it. So we
didn't embrace it. No.
And now we all go, oh, the SQA never joined up. And you're like, well, that's because we didn't allow it to join up.
That's so amazing to hear you say that, actually, because I've been thinking this for a number of years. The SQA get it tight from the profession, and actually they've been paving the way for this kind of future for a while.
But it's also it's the little things that have happened along the way that, for some reason, I mean, COVID and like I said earlier on, COVID was horrendous. I had a horrible time during COVID. It was not a fun time at all. People had real heartbreak going on. There was nothing enjoyable about COVID, but what it did do was allow us to take stock of education and go, what is working, what's no working, what should we bin?
Yeah.
And I think the best schools, the best authorities took that opportunity and binned a bunch of stuff that wasn't working for them. That was just IBing, and let's get rid of it. And so they're in a much better place. That being said, there are still schools, there are still authorities out there who, for whatever reason, snapped back to the old model. And you're like, I wish you just kept up some of those practices you were doing. It's the wee things.
So close,
I always go back to the maths teachers. Maths teachers in COVID, I'm going to write up on the board, I'm going to record my exposition of this sum. And then I'm going to put it into Teams or wherever else. And then you've got that, and you can watch that as many times as you like. Which means me, at the front of the classroom, I can now go around the room and help you, as opposed to being stuck at the board going over it again and again and again, right? So those wee things were really beneficial. Unfortunately, too many of them, because we went back in, it was like, oh God, we're back in at panic stations. We snapped back to the old ways. And I think we've missed a beat. So I'm hoping that KIC allows us to kind of go back to that conversation about what worked well during COVID and what benefits did we get from COVID. Some of those questions were great. Some of those questions around what worked really well. Well, digital tools, we were handing them out willy-nilly, like SCDO and the MiFis and stuff. We're just running out the door. Kids who needed access got access.
Yeah.
If that's the way you want to work, then give them access. Give them the tool, give them the accessible, whatever it is. I think we need to think about that again. Like, what do the kids need from us? Whole scale, so we can do that thing and then get rid of some of the stuff we don't need anymore because of that. Rooms that are full of books. When we moved from one school to the other, and the number of books that got burned was huge. It was like, well, we've had them all in a room. They've been insulating that room for years, but we're not actually using them anymore. Get it going. Modern studies teacher, we couldn't keep a PowerPoint for a year because, Conservative government changed every 6 weeks. So it's like, here we go again. Let's keep on moving it. So how much of that stuff should have just got binned instead of being hang on to it? Which also brings in the question, how much of our digital footprint has gone up in schools? If we used to have these rooms full of old books, what are we doing about data cleansing? Because I know for a fact there are teachers out there who've got pupil records for 10 years on their hard drives.
Totally.
Yeah, no.
And if we're talking about data privacy stuff, then and carbon footprint, sustainability, all of that is just sitting there getting problematic.
Yeah, being stored on a server.
It's back to that thing about if we need to move forward, we need to think about how do we cleanse, Simon Breakspeare talks about pruning principles. How do we cut back on the things that are no needed? So some of that is about where is our data cleansing? Where do we cut that stuff and go, that's gone now. These old books that used to be sitting in a room that we burned the last time we moved school are now digital files sitting in your hard drive clogging up Glow.
Yeah,
get rid of them.
Absolutely.
Make the whole thing streamlined. So there's all these things to be thinking about. Curriculum-wise, Scotland, I think we're in a good place, and then we've got loads. What I like about this time round is there's a lot of people in the room talking about what the curriculum should be, whereas before there was maybe half a dozen folks signing off on stuff, and undoubtedly individuals, in fact, signing off on stuff at times. So
absolutely.
It's much more committee-based. That in itself means there's a longer period to think it all through, but hopefully also means we get a lot more views through to talk it through. I'm not the person to talk about that. Get Ollie Beret on to talk about that. He's the man.
Ollie Beret, I know. And actually, it kind of felt like that's what gives me kind of like a feeling of safety that he's sort of there leading on that, because I worked with him, 10, 15 years ago when we both felt frustrated about things we wanted to do but weren't able to. So
that idea of agency, Pam, I think it's another thing I find really interesting. We're in a weird space just now where there's a huge amount of autonomy for teachers. Like, we have control of what we do in our classrooms. We can do, just because of the curriculum, we can do just about anything. The new CFE, whatever that looks like, I hope doesn't change that. I think the autonomy should still be really high. Like, maybe a bit more of a steer on specifics that we don't have at the moment, because let's face it, that's been the killer of CFE. Is just this big vague document of you should be able to look at the stars and think and wonder. How can I assess whether you're wondering or not? Right? I can't do that. So there's a bit of vague stuff in there, but so a wee bit more specifically on that would be good. But the autonomy piece has to stay, and there's a weird dichotomy. And again, I'll go back to the digital stuff on this. Our big ed tech companies are so gleeful to give you training on how to use their office-based tools. And I'm going to keep on going with this. They're office-based. They're no education tools. Right, so here's how to use Word effectively in a classroom. Says who? Says the teacher? No, says Microsoft. So I'm in that. This weird thing. Like, so you're being told, here's the tools available to you, and here's how to use them the way we see as a good way of using them. Is that cutting off a big chunk of pedagogy that we're not even thinking about because we're no longer seeing it as something we can think about? We haven't got the platform for it. So the agency is going because we're handing it over to these big Microsoft, Apple, whoever else companies, Google companies. And the flip side of that is that, and I'm as guilty as anybody doing this, I went through all the digital badges, had my Apple Distinguished and all that stuff, and my Microsoft and all that. So I had all these shiny digital badges, and what does that make you? It makes you a brand ambassador.
Totally does, by the way.
Sure.
So if you've got a green beret from the Marines, it means something to you. Like, it took me all those weeks going through all that hell, being covered in mud, running up hills, hanging off things. I did all that, got my green beret at the end of it, right? So that's amazing. Well done, you. Do you want somebody to take that green beret away from you? No, you don't. As a teacher, you go through 9 months of hellish training. Let's face it, it's hard.
Yep.
Get yourself up to that point where you get your qualification. You're the equivalent of a pedagogical green beret. And instead of wearing that thing with pride, you pop it down because what you want instead is the Apple badge or the Microsoft badge. And so we see it's like, I'm a Microsoft teacher. I'm like, no, you're a Scottish teacher. You have incredible qualifications. Don't undersell yourself by wearing some brand.
Interesting.
And I keep going back. We'll go back to the ballpoint pen. Nobody at ballpoint pen makers, no Uniball expert has ever come out to me and going, hey, you use my Uniball? I'm like, yeah, because here's the way to do it. No,
nobody's cutting about with Bic t-shirts on.
Yeah, it's like literally, there's the tool. Do with it what you will. Crack at. That's a totally different. It's a totally different relationship. Being told how to use the tool just freaks me out. This isn't good pedagogy. It's good office work.
So what we do is, like, I suppose if you're kind of thinking about the training side of thing, like what we focus on is things like, right, are your learning resources accessible? Well, in Word or Google Docs, you can put alt text on your images, and you can run an accessibility check to see if your learning resource is accessible. There's a brilliant use of the tool in a pedagogical,
it's the inclusive
context.
bit. It's above and beyond just replacing, like I think this is where the kind of the SAMR model comes in. All you're doing with Google is replacing what you did with paper. You're missing the beat. No, it's like going back to the numbers thing. Numbers, yes, if you listen to it's a spreadsheet, but also it's a thing to write on and draw on and whatever else. So use your tools in the way that you want to. So I think ballpoint pens are great. They're incredibly flexible. I can carry them anywhere I want to. I don't need to recharge them. Occasionally need to refill them, but I can just get on with it. Like that's phenomenal. And nobody's telling me how to use it. I mean, maybe primary school teachers will tell me how to hold it. That's totally different. Right? So you're given the skills to get on with using it. We don't
and actually, and that's what it's like at work. Like at work, in a kind of digital office, I suppose, you're surrounded by your toolkit, your digital toolkit, but you're not totally using the same thing all the time. Like we'll often pick up our phones to do something and then send it to your desktop to do something else, but in the meantime you've got your giant post-it notes that are my favourite part of my toolkit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just I think that's a message.
And we've been skirting about each other for 2 decades basically, and it's all the digital stuff, but my favourite thing is a ballpoint pen, your favourite thing is a post-it note.
Totally.
Yes.
Like
totally.
The digital, it's that intentionality bit. It was L. David Marquette who came out with how to turn this boat around. He's taken over the command of this nuclear sub, whatever it was, and he was like, I could tell you all what to do, but then there's a bottleneck in me. If I fall over dead, this boat doesn't go anywhere. Whereas if you guys tell me your intention, this is what I intend to do, and then I can make sure that that's the right thing with the overall. That's where leadership comes into it. How much of that would work in our schools? Like, I don't just mean head teachers to teachers, teachers to students.
Yes.
Here's the problem. What is your intention? I'm going to try that. Great, give it a bash. That's thinking. That's not, I'm going to show you how to do it, now go and do it. That's not thinking.
Yeah.
So I always get a bugbear about maths having one solution. There's no one solution in maths. It's the right solution for you, so long as it gets the right answer.
Yeah.
So it's like go and find your own way through this. If you do multiplications differently, crack it.
I think there's a few kind of really great takeaways from today's episode, and Andy,
definitely.
I'm sure I speak for Niall as well when I say that, like, we could easily have carried this on.
Oh yeah, easily.
Honestly, it was amazing. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thanks very much for listening to the end of another episode. Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Andy as much as we did. Remember, you can follow us on all the social platforms. We're at Digitize Crew on most of them. It makes a huge difference to us, and we really appreciate every single one of you who listens, who subscribes to our YouTube channel. If you could share the podcast with even just 5 of your friends, that would make a big difference to us. And remember, if you've listened, take a selfie, share it on socials. Every little bit of sharing helps us massively. We just do this for fun, but it really helps us if people share it. Thank you.